Hey guys, you're watching and listening to Daniel and Gian talk shit. Today is Today is October 6th, 2020, 9:22 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And yes, guys, we're gonna try to get these out faster than we have in the past
because it's hard to keep up.
Last one,
it's hard to keep up with all. It
is hard to keep up.
Eddie Van Halen died today. I mean, between the last podcast and today, Trump got coronavirus. I mean, Regal Cinema's shutting down in the U.S. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now. Just in the last few days.
2 NFL games got postponed or moved. 2 games got moved and 1 got postponed altogether. So because of the coronavirus infection. So that's
something to talk about for those who care about football still.
The world is a crazy place, but let's we were talking about baseball before we started. Let's talk a little baseball. I know you and I we're in the thick of this new playoff format. More teams. First round was best of 3. Second round is best of 5. The divisional series is going to be I'm assuming it's going to be best of 7. The World Series is going to be best of 7. And they shortened it up because season started later and they want to be done before October because baseball is always done
November.
in the middle of October. Or you just don't want to. Football is king here in the States, so you don't want to go up against. Like basketball is already feeling that. Basketball, the finals are getting some of the lowest ratings because the games are on the same day as the NFL, and people prefer the NFL to NBA. So in fact, they the last round, they basically canceled the Sunday games. Or they moved the time until it was like in between the last afternoon game and Sunday night football. And they canceled Monday basketball altogether because they don't want to go head to head with Monday night football. So it's just, if you like sports and you're still stuck at home, you're working, you're social distancing or you're remote working, it's a great time to be a sports fan. But so I'm going off topic here, but something that we talked about before in the past and something that you feel for sure is whoever wins the championship this year, including the
Los Angeles Dodgers, my team.
It doesn't count.
It does not. I mean, it counts. It's going to be in the record books. They'll never be able to take them away. And they did win the championship, or whoever did win the championship for this year. But this year should absolutely have an asterisk involved, some sort. Just the whole year. I mean, you don't have to asterisk every single thing, the MVP, whatever. Just 2020 season has an asterisk on it. Anyone who won any other awards did so under a shortened season and should never be held with the same regard as someone who didn't, who did it in a normal season. That's what I would say.
So let me ask you, if something happens where baseball decides that they actually like this shorter season more and they switch it to where from now on
there's going to be less teams
shorter like this.
There's going to be less teams because there's barely teams right now surviving, and they're probably only surviving because they're around for so long of the year where it's like you're always seeing. I mean, I don't know what the Marlins attendance was. It's probably a little bit higher now. I mean, right now it's 0, but in the future, because Derek Jeter bought it, they're in the playoffs now. You know, they turned their whole team around, but like on a normal basis, they probably weren't getting that many people. So it's like, how do you sustain small places like that when you're done in 2 months, when you have it?
Well, but they were already kind of being sustained by the television contracts because they get a piece of everybody else's revenue. Like that's the only reason why the A's have survived. The A's have had the worst attendance for the past 20 years, but because they get such a huge amount of baseball television revenue money, they're still able to put a product out there, and the owners are cashing in. And in fact, it's why they changed the rules for the salary, where you had to spend a minimum of this much amount salary because some of the weaker market teams were like, oh, well, the owners were like, I'm just going to put a shitty team out there and pocket this extra cash.
Well, I also, on another angle, it's just in terms of the game, I also just feel like it's not baseball anymore once you do that. That's like literally the whole point. That's what makes it the big leagues, that you're in this for 200 plus days, and by the end of it, the people who survived all of this are the champions, are the whatever. But it's not like the Posey rule where I liked that because I grew up with collisions and stuff like that. But now that it's gone, there's still excitement at home plate. Baseball didn't change fundamentally, but there is just something completely different about having 100 less games. Not 60 less games, not 50 less games, not 10 less games, 100. 100 is a lot. A lot. Where you're seeing people who maybe are better suited for this format, but are maybe better suited for the longer format, that you're not seeing do as well. And I don't know what that does for the fundamentals of the game either. Because the games aren't any shorter, the game's not any faster. They have that 10th inning, extra innings, like man on second, which I'm not a fan of, but it's not making that, little things like that aren't making the game that much faster, I guess is the point. So I don't really see why you would cut your revenue losses, like you cut revenue like that.
I think baseball's been dying a slow death, and I think this season was a blessing in disguise because they were able to play around with stuff to see if they could make the game more exciting, if they could get people back into it. And there's some things that the offense has definitely been up compared to the last couple of years. Because of this whole reliever rule where if you bring in a reliever, he has to pitch to 3 batters minimum.
Which I like, but that's a whole nother thing.
And I think stuff like that is causing more scoring.
Because growing up, you bring a reliever in and they were in there, usually. They weren't in there for one batter. This one, that's literally, sometimes it feels like they come in for one strike and then they take them out to bring in another pitcher to throw another strike in just so they can get 3 strikes, That literally, it felt like that sometimes. Obviously, that never happened, but you literally see these left versus right matchup. I got to bring the lefty. I got to have the this. I got to have the that. Or growing up, it was like people pitched out of things. That's just how it was. And there was no shift either. There's no.
Yeah. Tonight we saw, or the game's going on right now, the Dodgers with the Padres. But
speaking of offense. It's a no-hitter. The Padres have a no-hitter against the Dodgers, and the score's tied 1-1. So,
before I pulled up, I was listening on the radio, and the Padres brought in a left-hander to throw to Jock Peterson, and immediately Dave Roberts put in Kike Hernandez. So it's kind of like the reverse thing, where like you can't do the same thing
for
Yeah, exactly. It's a reverse. They could do the reverse on you on offense. So, like,
it's going to make it more prone for offense.
Right. I mean, it didn't work this time around. But
no. They still tied the score. They still tied it somehow during a no-hitter.
There's other stuff I don't like. I was never a fan of the DH, and that's because, you grew up watching National League Baseball.
Yep.
That's a part of the game. So this forced DH thing might be around to stay. I'm not really big on that. But, I don't know. I think in the long term, if it gets more people back into the game, and then maybe the shorter season is the way to go, we're going to start having to look at this season as the first of a whole new sport.
I don't know. I still feel like that it's debatable as to who's dying in terms of the baseball, because Dodgers they've never been bigger, in my opinion. If certain home markets have never been bigger than they have been, in my honest opinion. The sport itself is just different, just because there's so many things on TV that people can watch now, and so many exclusive home broadcasting things where you can't even watch a Dodger game unless you have Spectrum, even if you live in Los Angeles. So it's like they're hard. It's hard to market these to really expand yourself, But at the same time, the revenue is still coming in bigger than.
Well, that's because the regional television contracts that baseball has are stronger than any other sport, because basically
no one's paying like $25 billion for the Dodgers.
Yeah, NFL is a national, like, nobody owns regional rights to the football games. Nobody owns regional rights to basketball games.
Right.
Baseball's completely different. It's in the contract. So on a regional level, baseball is fine, but on a national level, it's no longer the national sport. And then when a baseball game goes head to head with basketball or football, it loses. So they're looking for a way to get that back up, because baseball used to be king. Baseball and heavyweight boxing, those are America's top sports. And then
it's because
around
of the
90s and 2000s,
all the Hispanics came into the game and ruined it.
Well, I mean, that's actually something I talked I talked to Aaron Lee Dowell about that, and I want to bring him on so we could talk about, the death of baseball in the African American community. Because growing up, even for me, all the biggest stars were black, American black, and that's gone away. You still have white guys that are stars, but your American black superstars.
Maybe it comes back. I don't know. Maybe Mookie helps bring that back now that he's in LA. I mean, coronavirus sucks, but like that's a bigger platform than being in New York, in my opinion, right now. Like if you're a ball player and you want to have that like essence behind you, the people behind you, I think being in Los Angeles is the place to be, as opposed to New York.
But if you don't have Spectrum, you're not watching Mookie play. So.
It's true. It's true. I can't really. Well, I mean, in LA, people have their ways, fire sticks and other things like that. People watch the Dodgers, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm glad baseball's on. I'm watching it. I shouldn't say I have been watching it. I've been watching the playoffs. But it's at the end of the day, it's baseball. Baseball's still going to be baseball. I just don't think I don't think. I mean, first of all, they've already approved the schedule. You can only see the schedule for next year. It's not a 60-game schedule, so it's not like it's something that's going to be here to stay. They posted that a while ago. I think to combat fears of like people being afraid that this is going to be a permanent change. But who knows? Who knows? With Joe Torre at the helm, I mean, in the background, they've been doing all these experiments for a while.
Yeah, well, I mean, baseball is the king of analytics, so
it can only be the king of analytics. It can only be the king of analytics with the 160 games, in my opinion. That's why these stats can be made, because there's so many games.
Oh no, I wasn't even talking about the actual game itself. I was talking about like television ratings.
Oh, all that. Yeah.
Merchandise and all the money making part of it.
Right.
Let's talk about the news that everybody else really cares about. We probably chased off a bunch of people.
Right away.
President Trump got the Rona.
He did. Actually, speaking of Aaron, Aaron's the one who told me. He's the one who texted me about it. I mean, I would have found out anyway, because how do you not find out about this? But he texted me, and his tweet from Twitter, and it's been an interesting few days.
Yeah, yesterday I listened to, or this morning actually, no, last night, excuse me. Last night I listened to the Monday episode of The Daily, the New York Times, and it was crazy. Like, so two of the DC beat reporters came on, and they were like, the fucking White House every person in the White House is saying something completely different and contradicting the person before them. His chief of staff tried to do an off the record thing with him about his condition and didn't tell someone else, so the guy's camera was rolling and you can hear the audio of him.
I didn't know about this. What's this one?
Yeah, check it out. Check out Monday's episode of The Daily.
Well, what did he say? Tell me now.
He was saying that he was telling people, like, he was telling the reporters, hey, like, I know they're trying to say he's fine and he's doing great, but his blood oxygen levels dropped.
This is audio of this?
There's audio, yeah.
Then why isn't anyone talking about this? I haven't heard about this.
Because immediately he goes on Twitter and puts out a video. And then the same guy, the chief of staff that wanted to be off the record, goes on and says, like, completely changes his statement. The doctor. There's a whole segment recorded where they're like, has President Trump been on oxygen and on an oxygen tank? And the doctor goes, no, the president has not been on the oxygen tank today. So was the president on oxygen yesterday? No, the president hasn't been on oxygen today or yesterday. So has the president been on an oxygen tank at all? The president hasn't been on an oxygen tank today. The doctor is saying this. They're doing the political double speak.
They said he put it. People, I didn't, not from this, but I definitely read that he was on oxygen that first day.
Right. Well, he doesn't want people to know that he was on oxygen.
Yeah, so I know.
Yeah.
And then there's Kelly Conway's daughter. I don't know if you've seen those videos. The 15-year-old.
Yeah.
Who exposed.
She's on TikTok, like, yeah.
Exposed, like, saying, people keep saying Trump's fine and he's not. Like, and then her mom, like, there's even like snaps or TikToks, whatever, of her mom yelling at her and stuff. It's it's been interesting.
Well, it's also it's because, and then the timeline. The doctor goes out there and says 72 hours, and then people are like, "But you guys said he came back negative until 2 days ago. What's the timeline here?" So then it went to 72 hours, then it went to 24 hours, then it went to 48 hours. Then it turns out he knew he was infected, and he still went to like some fundraising shit. You know, he's been around a lot of people. Now it's coming out that like fucking 45 people at Washington, his entire staff has it.
Not his whole entire staff, but a lot of people for sure.
No, but I read it. I know the number's over 30.
Well, I'm only saying that because there's people who are going to listen to this and be like, his whole staff is not infected.
Right.
It's not everybody. There's at least 5 people who are not infected. I'm just saying. It's been interesting because, you know, if he doesn't die and he comes out ahead of this and all this speculation, this whatever the doctor may or may not have said and on record saying or off the record saying, blah, 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 blah. But if he doesn't die from this, all of these publicity stunts, because they are publicity stunts, of him like saying, don't be afraid of the mask, or, you know, don't let it control your life. Look at me, I'm fine. Or if he's going to salute the helicopter, the very first thing, and this, and that, right? If this isn't me making a statement. I want to know, what do you think the outcome of that is if he doesn't die?
I mean, I said it after the debate. It doesn't matter if he fucking
he didn't have COVID. So now that he has COVID, but how do you think the people are going to react to that? Is that a positive message retrospectively,
I'm saying his supporters, even if he fucking murders small animals in the middle of the street, are going to fucking support him and make excuses for it. So
okay, let me reframe the question.
They're going to use it as Corona's not a big deal. That's what I'm saying. His supporters are going to be like, there you go, you see, it's a fucking conspiracy. It's a conspiracy of the left trying to fucking just sabotage the question. If you're asking something different, yeah, go for it.
Historically speaking, if he doesn't die from this, those drugs he took, the experimental drugs that only less than 10 people have took, end up being a part of the vaccine. You know, all these things. Historically, how will Trump be looked at? Will he be looked at as someone who helped bring in this new? Because there's definitely going to be people, like you said, who are going to stand by him even stronger. You know, who are going to say, look, Trump did this, so I'm going to follow suit. I'm going to take this vaccine that Trump took, and I'm going to, we beat COVID, right? And who knows? Maybe in the most optimistic and pure and alternate universe, that's the perfect step to go. But I'm just curious, historically, do you think that changes the way his outlook is if he doesn't die from this?
I mean, it's only going to be different if he changes the way he is.
Like, is it going to be a strong Winston Churchill moment where, you know, like you find out,
like, look,
they have all these skeletons in the closet, but you only know him as the guy who stood up to COVID, you know?
Right.
That strong moment where he took his mask off and he said, "Screw this virus. I'm gonna."
I don't think that changes anything because we just have way too much information now. When Winston Churchill didn't have
only people who wrote books knew, right?
Exactly. And then how many fucking people read those books?
Right.
You know, that's
you had to literally hear him speak live on the radio if you wanted to hear him talk.
Exactly. Like it's different. It's a different world. Now you're still gonna have people that have all this other stuff, like damning, and also like this would be a perfect opportunity for him to win some fucking points.
He could humble himself down and be like, man, you know, it was really bad.
Exactly. Hey, you know, I a heartfelt apology to all the families who've lost people. You know, and to say, you know, maybe I haven't been as scared of this virus until I had it, and now I know, and this is a dangerous virus. But hey, you know, I took this treatment, and
look, I'm a fat fucking old man, and I'm not dead.
Yeah, and
hope.
Look, we're gonna push. We're pushing
hope.
through, and you know what? I'm gonna sign a bill that's gonna push through this treatment, so that we get it out there as quickly as possible, and then that could turn into something if that treatment actually works, and it's not like, you know, he's good now. If they prop him up on
I know, like Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah, exactly. Like right now,
he's been dead. Who knows? He's just like a marionette.
They got him fucking shot up on fucking on adrenaline right now. You know, he's barely, like, he's this close to dying, and every time he's about to die, it's like, shoot him up, and he's back up, like, you know, and you get like a good fucking 30 seconds out of him before he goes back to almost dead. You know, we don't know. or he dies a month from fucking now.
Brandon
You know,
sent me a
like that's
Brandon sent me someone did like a Photoshop of Trump. You've seen Willy Wonka, right? And like the first time you see
yeah.
Willy Wonka, he's like in a cane and he's like all old, and you're like, oh man, and then he like falls forward and then he does like that flip and he's like, haha, I'm not actually disabled. They just put Trump's face on that, like all sick, corona, and then he like goes and falls over and he comes back up, and I'll put it on the video if I get it, but yeah, it made me laugh. Now it's just an interesting situation because I not only asked historically because I've been really reading on history a lot lately, so it is a different time. Everything's recorded. You can see videos of everything. You can see all his behaviors. You can see both sides right now and what they're saying and what their video evidence is. So it's a completely different time for history. But it is a question I'm curious about because, it's already emboldening both sides, like everything else that's been going on. It's just strengthening both sides, like disdain for one another, because they both seem to just overlook this common like center ground where they both literally get along and agree with the same exact things, but they want to like attack it from this angle as opposed to this angle, and it's like it's just.
I mean, you sent me this article where Trump is fresh out of the hospital and he's ripping his mask off while surrounded by people.
Yeah, and he went into when he before he left, he was in the motorcade with the Secret Service officers, so he can like have a wave at the people who've been standing outside of the hospital before he got dismissed or discharged.
Well, I mean, if he were to get like seriously ill and like fall off the face of the earth for a month, would that cost him the election? I don't know if it would.
It's tough to say. I mean,
I just don't fucking know where people's heads are at, to be honest with you. Because for me, but I'm not a supporter of his. Him going out and doing this shit makes him look even worse to me. But
I actually think the opposite. I actually think the complete opposite. If I'm a supporter of his,
you wore a MAGA hat in the last one, so
no.
We know.
Well, hold on. Your connection broke up a little bit, so I want to make sure I heard what you said. You're saying if you're a supporter, you don't think it strengthens them? Or you personally don't think it strengthens his outlook because you're not a supporter?
No, I'm saying that me, as I am not a supporter, I don't see it as it strengthens him, but I don't know what's going on through his actual supporters' heads.
Oh, okay.
So it might be,
Okay, I misheard you. Because I was going to say I think supporters absolutely feel stronger like in support of him than they ever did before after he did that. Because they've already been the ones not wearing masks, not giving a crap about any of this shit. Now it's like he gets the virus, right? And now they're like, oh shit, right? He's old. Like, it doesn't matter what fake bullshit you want to spout out. It's always those people who like, the virus ain't real. And then you hear about like, that guy's wife died. And then he's like, no, the virus is real. Take it serious. Like, you hear about those stories. We've heard about them. I'm not saying they're all the time, but we've definitely read those news articles where you hear about the people who trashed the coronavirus. And then when it happens to them, it kind of changes their entire outlook, right? Just like you said,
right,
that Trump could have had from this moment. But instead, what does he do? Within days, he's out talking to the camera, tweeting all of these things to go vote and, whatever, riling people up, going back to the White House, taking the mask off, saluting the thing, posting that video saying, don't be what does that do? That's going to strengthen those people who are already on that side. Look at that. Look at our president. He has the virus, and look what he's doing. The virus is bullshit, which is what you already just said. And it's just, that's why I'm saying I think it strengthens them. But at the end of the day, I also just think that time will only tell what's going to happen with him, because you can't hide that he died. If he dies from the virus, you can't hide that. You might be able to not say something for a day or two, but there's no way to hide that fact. So, because that's what they say. They say that the virus has to go and do its thing. So if it's either gonna, like, all of these things that he's been getting, the steroids, all these things, they're just preventative measures but it could still go. From what I read, all of these things are to prevent it from going from the nasal cavity or whatever down to the lungs, like just to slow that process down so the body can like fight back, do whatever it needs to do to kill it basically before it gets down to the lungs. Because once it gets down to the lungs, then that's when it's kind of game over, or that's when it really starts to get bad, I guess is is the best way to say
that's
it.
when it starts doing the major damage.
Right.
That's the stuff that and we're gonna try to get my friend on who's an ER nurse to talk about what he's seen, but he has some stories about X-ray scans.
And you know what?
If lungs.
Let's try to set that up within the next few weeks because it's completely relevant to have him give his thoughts on about what's going on with Trump right now because he's experienced it. I mean, not experienced it, but experienced it via the healthcare side. So it's just an interesting situation. It's also kind of it really does. I haven't heard anyone talk about this, but it's also kind of scary too, to be honest, because this is kind of like if this was the atomic bomb clock, the minutes to midnight, whatever it is. I'm forgetting whatever.
Yeah.
This just etched us closer to that moment of something bad happening, because if he dies at this time, or even if he gets elected and then he dies, like there's so many things.
Doomsday clock.
It's not leading in the right direction. You don't want any president to get sick and die. It doesn't matter if you hate him or not, in my opinion. I know some people were happy he got the Rona. Some people probably do want him to die. I know Twitter was banning people who were wishing his death or something, but I think it's kind of irresponsible to wish
the people that want him to die are fucking short-sighted because that's going to put Mike Pence in charge, even if it's only a month left.
And even then, it's still going to put the country in disarray. That's a big deal. There's a lot of people who loved him.
You want to ask yourself, like,
it immortalizes him at that point too. By the way, it makes him not a martyr, but pretty much it kind of makes him a martyr for those Trump supporters. They're not going to go away. They'll just get worse. We're going to fight for the Trump's America, Trump's ideals, this, he becomes like a Lenin type figure. Not exactly, but.
I mean, I get what you're saying. It's fucking scary.
We'll see.
You talked about it at the very beginning, but Regal Cinemas looks like they're going to be out of business here in the States because they're not opening up.
They're closing down. They're not out of business. They're closing down as a preventative measure. Just to clarify.
And part of that has to do with
James Bond.
I mean, we talked about it off
air. Yeah.
Off air, but California and New York still haven't opened up their movie theaters, or at least right?
Not just in limited California in limited capacity, New York not at all. And
Los Angeles hasn't opened.
Correct.
Yeah, LA hasn't opened up.
I don't think San Francisco either. So the major parts of the state are still not open, and New York just shut down gyms or church something. They just shut down some stuff today. So just movie theaters are not going to open up in New York anytime soon because they're starting to experience the second wave. Our own governor said 2 days ago that we are now in the second wave. It is now coming, so be prepared for all of that. Countries across the country are starting to shut down more and more as well. But anyway, go back to your point. Sorry.
These entities are going to shut down because like the major markets still aren't open, and that makes perfect sense, right?
Right.
So eventually, like, what do you expect?
Well, So the reason why I put this article on the thing today is because I wanted to propose the question: should the movie theater industry receive a bailout? Whatever. I mean, the airplanes industry is supposed to be receiving one. The cruise ship business is supposed to be receiving one. The auto industry received one on the last time. So big industries can get these. So my question to you is, do you feel like the movie theater industry should receive one? Because
that's a tough one.
Because right now, AMC is only staying open. AMC is not going to close, even though there was an article that was just posted. They have 6 months of cash left. Once that happens, who knows what's going to happen next. But the only reason why they're able to stay open is because of the deal they signed with Universal prior to this whole situation. So they are actually getting some of the profits.
Money.
They're getting some of the profits from the video on demand releases. So it's working out for them. But because Tenet, ironically enough, didn't make enough money, and we speculated about that this might not be good, or when Mulan and the numbers started coming out, we talked about this on a previous podcast. because they saw this and they're like, no, this isn't good. So all of these big companies decided, instead of just making less money, we'll just wait. And I think when things do reopen, a lot of the market is going to be different. And I actually kind of do feel like it could put them in some serious, dire situations. I don't know what the extent is, but there has already been a letter that's been signed by Spielberg and Scorsese and all these people requesting for just that, for a bailout. So that's why
it really just, it depends on if you want to. In the scheme of things, cinema is such a new entity. It's been around since the early. The film itself has been around, a little over 100 years, and then the movie theater thing is, about 100 years old. So it's such a new thing, and it's such an American thing and a historical thing. Maybe that's the way to attack it, where we have to save these because it's a part of our culture. But at the same time, the culture is changing because of what's
but is
going
it
on.
though? But is it though? So that's what actually this brought up. The article brought up. Last year was the second best year domestically in the U.S. since all of these records have been being kept track. They grossed $42 billion at the box office. Obviously, that was with the Avengers and all these things, but that still lets people know that people are still going to the theaters. And let's be honest, going to the theaters is still a very cheap date for people. It is. It's you go to see Hamilton. Good luck. If your town even has a theater or a concert. I mean, concerts are going more and more expensive. I feel like maybe it's just me. I mean, not now. It's hard to talk about it now, but I mean, I'm seeing there's death metal bands now that I'll pay. Don't complain, but it's like $50-$60 a ticket. Like what? And then you go to see Metallica, $160. Slayer was, I don't know how much Slayer was. I think Slayer was $70, and we sat in the rafters. Like we sat above the stadium somehow, and I think that's how much they were, $75 ticket, something like that. So it's like going to watch a movie is still pretty inexpensive, even with popcorn, even with all these things. And people do like going to the theaters. I mean, people like going to watch the Avengers. They do like going to watch. They will go watch Black Widow when it comes out. They will go watch James Bond. It's interesting. That's all. It's an interesting question to ask, because under normal circumstances you would say no, because movie theaters would be thriving during times like this, right? During the last, not thriving. That's not a good way to put it, but they can cut back those theater costs even more. Right. The ticket prices during the last recession, people still went to the movie theaters. They didn't get magically all shut down. It's because it still was cheap for them.
I wonder, maybe it's time to adapt a little bit. And what I mean by that is, I don't know, figure out how to do an open air thing. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's weird. Like I see, we've seen a small jump in these or reopenings of drive-ins. And the audio is obviously that's an issue, but there's a way to work around that. We're at a new place technologically where.
Yeah, but if my choice is watching it in the drive-in or at home, I'm going to watch it at home. And this is someone who would never say that about a normal theater experience.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. You got to adapt to the times. Like if it's going to cost you, if you can't afford to stay open because of the new restrictions. Like if you can only run at a quarter capacity, like a lot of restaurants in other states are doing. I mean, how are you going to sustain?
The article is arguing that the fact that New York hasn't opened anything at all is the reason why things are starting. That things aren't really picking up like they should, because New York as well as Los Angeles are the two number 1 and 2 markets for films in terms of writers writing about them, in terms of like me and you and watching them and publicizing them on social media and all these things, and like you got to go check this out. We make up a huge percentage of that market push, I feel like. And so
it's also the two largest populations in the country, so
exactly
it makes sense as well.
And so that's what the article is arguing about, that it's New York has been extremely unfair up until this point because there have been zero, according to this article in Variety that I keep quoting or referring to, there have been no cases that have been linked to any movie theaters in any part of the world. So the fact that New York is so hard on it, it really makes it seem unfair. When you have restaurants, you have bars, you have all these things open, even in limited capacities. They offer indoor dining, you know. So my thing is, okay, just do the 25%. Start off there, see where that goes. But a lot of these places can't do that. But then I'm also a hypocrite because I can go to Orange County, drive 25-30 minutes to go to the theater, which I would have done beforehand to go watch an Indian movie, whatever, and I haven't gone and done that. I haven't gone to go watch Tenet. So it's like,
right.
I don't know what to say. It's tough. I don't want the movie theater business to disappear, I guess is a better way to put it. I don't think it'll disappear completely, but if it weakens enough and the movie companies have no choice but to release James Bond on video on demand or Black Widow on video on demand or all these things, they will absolutely do it. They will continue to make movies. They will continue to make TV shows. But if they have to cut that revenue stream out, they will do it. They will adapt to that. They're trying their best to not do that. But they're not. The reason why this is concerning and why a bailout might be necessary, in my honest opinion, this can only go on for so long. If there's no movie theaters open by 2022, 2023, there might be a genuine, huge closure in movie theaters across the entire country, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because it's just not sustainable. It's not like the airplane business where you could still charge. I mean, the people are still flying, right? So it's not like that went away, but even they're struggling, right? Laying off people and doing all these things.
Yeah. So. The airline industry, that's a completely different ballgame in itself. That's just they've mismanaged their money. They've been bailed out multiple times.
Oh, I mean,
and they've made record profits, and the bailouts have more to do with the investors, the people that have own a lot of stock in the companies, and that.
I brought them up because at least they're allowed to operate.
Right.
That's all I was trying to get at. They're allowed to operate.
You can make the argument that a movie theater is safer than an airplane.
I would make that argument. Especially since I'm sure some theaters have installed like filtration systems. I know AMC's done a lot of stuff, so that's them adapting. But it's just you can't do anything if no one can go in them.
What about these robots? Have you heard about these robots that they're going to start setting up at stadiums that shoot like UV rays to kill any viruses?
I mean, whatever works. I mean, look, I encountered one of these UV things at the Space Needle in Seattle. And you're supposed to like hold your hands up and like it scans you or something like that. And I'm like, well, what if the virus is in my armpits? Because I did this or something, right? Like, because I didn't do this. And then the guy's like, you can go inside. Like, because he had no, like, because I thought it was stupid. Like, I stood in that machine and it like spins around you and scans you. And I'm like, yeah, but what if it's here? Or like, what if it's under my like I don't understand all this, like, and he's like, yeah, because you're only allowed, you have to take off your, I forgot what it was, but if that makes people feel better,
also that's also a rudimentary machine. Like apparently the machines they're supposed to be pumping out at the stadiums are supposed to be like really high tech and expensive, but
I mean, let's be honest, you go to certain clubs and they barely have the right amount of security, so it's like, am I really going to trust them with a UV device that kills the virus? Like,
a few months ago, there was this country artist that did a concert, and a bunch of people showed up. It was like in Tennessee or something. A bunch of people showed up, and then he was getting fucking, like, getting
I remember
roasted
it, like,
on the internet,
ended his career.
And then but my response, I saw people on Facebook roasting the guy, like, how irresponsible for you. And then I posted, I said, hey, at some point, the people that decided to go to that fucking concert need to take responsibility for putting themselves in potential risk. You can't fucking put all the blame on the fucking artist for doing a concert. Because people know there's a virus, and they decided to fucking
That's
show
why
up.
you can't. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's why you can't blame Trump for everything.
Right.
Trump might say
People are
you don't need to do this, this, and this, but you also have to have the wherewithal to understand, like, yeah, this is a virus, and you could die, and you could infect other people who could also die as a result of you being infected. Blah blah blah, etc. etc.
I mean, it would just if you believe everything the president says and you gave him that much power, you're a fucking idiot. The guy was a fucking game show host. The guy's a game show host. There's a reality game show host, and you're taking scientific advice from him. You're a fucking idiot. All right, like that, and if that's 60% of the population in the U.S., if that's 75%, so be it. You got to know who you're getting your info from.
Especially now and during this time where you have so much information readily available. Because if this were 1915 and Trump were president, I could see how a lot of people would be following him, and I wouldn't blame them at all.
Well, not now.
Because there was a time and place where the president, whatever he said was the, you believed it because you didn't really have a choice. You might not agree with it, but you're like, okay.
Eddie Van Halen died today. R.I.P. I think I feel like last year we mentioned it on a podcast, but someone told me that they were looking for a hospice nurse because big time rock star had terminal cancer, and did the mental gymnastics, and with the information given to me, I kind of put two and two together, and I was like, oh, it might be him. And then I think I looked up an article, and it said something that he was like in the hospital for a few weeks or something, But basically, I kind of already knew. I don't know how many people, how much of that information was out there, and maybe I wasn't.
Well, apparently, according to an article I read today, that people knew he had cancer, but no one knew it was terminal. Like, no one knew it was like this.
Ah, okay.
So the death actually came as a shock to like everybody, apparently. I mean, other than like
got it,
his immediate circle, but that's what the article said.
Right.
So, I mean, I didn't know, but either way, it was still like, oh wow, because in terms of living guitar legends, rock guitar legends, he was arguably who's left of his era really in that age who's still like Slash, but I feel like that's because he's by virtue of, I don't know, Guns N' Roses is really, really late 80s, so it doesn't really count, and Van Halen was obviously...
Yeah, Guns N' Roses is 10 years later than Van Halen. Van Halen was like kind of the end of the classic arena rock era and the beginning of the like hair metal, hard rock, huge arena rock type stuff, kind of not exactly metal, but kind of metal-ish at times. And they were, a better way of putting it is, they were one of the first very big MTV bands.
Yeah,
so when MTV
really
finally
big
launched,
mainstream, super mainstream.
Yeah, exactly. Like they were like one of the big hard rock, loud. It was like they definitely bridged the gap between eras. They were the end of the sex, drugs, and rock and roll type 70s stuff, and they opened up. They kind of started their own kind of big hair, also sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but
in its own way, it's its own different way. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like they went from the drinking a lot and smoking pot to the doing a lot of cocaine.
Yep.
Rock and roll era, and where everything got elaborate. Like, Gene Simmons from Kiss liked to tell people that he discovered them because apparently, he saw them in Pasadena when they started and he tried to sign them, but he failed and somebody else signed them. But they took a lot of Kiss's huge theatrics and they did the 80s version of it once they really got big. Like 1984, although if you look up album sales, 1984 is not their biggest album. I think one of the Van Hagar albums is, sales-wise. 1984 is arguably like, that's the most mainstream one that everybody knows. That one has Jump on it. It has Panama. has Hot for Teacher. Basically all the Guitar Hero songs that people played are from 1984, from that album. So, he's we lost a legend, but like my ex-girlfriend said on Instagram today, legends never die.
It's true. But also, it also really ends there will be no more reunions after this, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that as in like, well, no shit, but it's like, you can replace a vocalist for Van Halen. You can't replace Van Halen for Van Halen. You can't replace Eddie. He's literally the reason why the band is the band.
And the band, him and his brother, the band is named after them.
So, and you wanted to see him play guitar. You just wanted to see him play guitar. That was it. So I mean, you can't find a replacement for him because you just can't. You can play it. You might be able to find someone who played just as good as him or whatever, but it's still not going to be him. You can't see the Jimi Hendrix experience with what's his name? Who is the guy who was like, I don't know why, I know who he is. I'm seeing his face. Lenny Kravitz. Lenny Kravitz could play whatever the Jimi Hendrix song you want. It's still not going to be the Jimi Hendrix experience. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I only bring up Lenny because he had that song that sounded very like that. It just sounds just like a Jimi Hendrix song. I don't know the big one, his big song, whatever it is.
Are you gonna go my way?
Whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, if you talk to Lenny Kravitz, I'm sure he would say Jimi Hendrix was a huge.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. No insult to him. That was the first person I thought of. Like, you could try to fill shoes, but you can't.
So on a side note, he just did like a magazine article for somebody, like Men's Health or something, and it's like, fuck that guy. I fucking hate him so much.
Oh, okay.
It's not fucking fair that he was given those fucking genetics, dude. It's not fucking fair. The guy's 56 years old and just he looks like a fucking knife in a suit, man. Fuck, dude. I'm like, what the fuck? Jesus fucking Christ. Come on.
Some people, man.
Not fucking fair at all.
Hey, man, I get it. I really do. There's just certain people in the world that just don't get that. That was their one, like, gene that just won't die. That just, I don't know what it is. Good for them, though.
The son of a bitch is also a talented fucking musician as well, and a handsome motherfucker.
He got all the cards.
He got everything.
He
got
a royal flush.
I've never had a conversation with him, so hopefully he's just a fucking moron. But it's probably not part true either. So,
Yeah, let's be honest here.
Oh man, but
either way, 65. That's just pretty young. I mean, I remember reading about how he would build his own guitars, and you'd go to a Hard Rock cafe and you'd see his guitars with the pickups, and they were all like modified, and and his paint job that he did himself, that he would just tape. Like, I remember I did that in high school. Like, I would get the tape and then color it with I forgot what I would do for like my notebooks and stuff, just because it was really simple to just do those designs. And yeah, I mean, no one really played guitar like him. So it's one of those things.
Who got you into Van Halen? Was that like your parents got you into that, or
definitely.
How did you discover Van Halen?
Sure. But also things like on 1984, like you'd go to a middle school party, and like that was still a song that you could listen to that was cool, but also, something their parents could listen to. So, I mean, I would say my parents, to be honest, because it just, I don't know.
I think Guitar Hero, they had their own Guitar Hero game. There was a Van Halen Guitar Hero DLC, or it was actually a separate disc when it came out. So like, because it came out when I moved down to LA, so like 2009, 2010-ish. They had their own game that was all Van Halen songs.
Which deservedly, they deserved that, and then they got more recognition.
Stuff like that, with like a younger generation gets introduced to their music too. Like I was, when I was doing Uber, one time I picked up an Uber pool, and I had the classic rock playlist from Spotify going, and there was kids in the back of my car singing the songs to themselves underneath their breath that did not fit the demographic. I'm just gonna put it. That's as PC
Well,
as I'm gonna get with it.
parents, man. That's that. I think that, and then the guitar, the games, all that
Well,
stuff.
dude,
I remember
the
listening.
games were a big influence.
Well, I can
That's what
tell
I'm
you,
saying. Like,
I
the
remember
exposure
listening
because
to
of the games.
I remember listening to Van Halen on cassettes. So.
Not you. I wasn't saying you
No,
specifically.
I know, but I'm saying though, like
there's like that. Like there was that episode of South Park where they're playing like "Carry On My Wayward Son" on Guitar Hero, and then Randy comes out with his real guitar and starts playing it. He's like, "Yeah, that's cool, but look, it's even cooler when I'm really playing it." And then Kyle's like, "Shut up, Dad. What are you doing, Dad? We don't want to play that. We want to play this." He said, but no, look, it's real, and I'm really playing it. This is way cooler. You know.
Which is also that's so true.
Yeah. You don't get points. You don't get points for playing on the real guitar, Dad.
I love South Park. But either way,
well,
it never comes as a welcome thing to read,
No. So rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen. I hate that this is starting to become a weekly thing of
that's what I'm saying.
Pretty major people.
Just disappearing. That's it. That's
2020 is undefeated.
Well, why don't we end on a positive note then? Why don't we end with Mr. Darren Till and Mike Perry for the UFC fighter?
Okay.
So for those who don't know, Mike Perry and Darren Till are both UFC fighters. Darren Till is a contender. I think he's ranked top 5 for his division. I don't know off the top of my head.
He's hanging around there at the middleweight division. Like he had a tough loss in his last fight, but it was a close match.
But he's still right there. He can be a challenge for the title just in a fight or two, no problem. And then you have Mike Perry.
He's also probably one of the best. He's one of the best internet shit talkers.
He's great, and he's English too.
He's got some of the best. He's definitely shows his age with his how good he is with the memes, with the memes.
And then you have Mike Perry. Mike Perry, he kind of just came on the spotlight recently in terms of public notoriety because of his antics. Recently, he fought without a corner, actually without a training camp, right? I think it was he just self-trained himself, and he had his girlfriend in his camp, and he won the fight.
I don't think he could. I mean, it was COVID, the middle of COVID, and also I think he couldn't afford to
And whatever it might be, he still did that. He won the fight. Within a few weeks after that, there was a video leaked of him fighting with said girlfriend and dropping N-bombs and X, Y, and Z. And so, Dana kind of put him on
Does
hold.
It count? Hold on. Does it count as an N-bomb if there's not a hard ER at the end, and you say it to a white guy?
He might have said ER. I don't know. I'd have to go back to the tapes.
It was not a hard R.
Well, let's be real that if you're white, you can't say either, and it's an N-bomb.
But he might be 1/16 black, and we don't know it.
Look, I mean, you and I both know that if you grew up in the community, you're allowed to say whatever you want. It's the outsiders who don't recognize that. Because you and I both know plenty of white people, plenty of brown people, plenty of X, Y, and Z who are not African American, who drop that word. And when they're around their friends who are African American, they don't bat an eye because they're from whatever hood, from whatever. Because that's just, you know what I mean? You would know what I mean. Most people wouldn't because they just see a white guy saying it and they're like, he must be ghetto. He must be ignorant, which he probably is both, but he also is accepted in his own community to say things like that. But anyway, neither here nor there. So Dana White put him on hold. And I guess he just recently got a fight. He's going to be fighting in the next few weeks or something like that. And he put a contest out there. He's going to continue with no trainer, but he wants you to basically auction. He's auctioning, his corner away to someone. And it started out as something small, and then I think Darren Till threw $5,000 in. You told me OnlyFans, or who did you say put in $10,000?
So I saw a post today that somebody screenshotted that Cam Soda, which is just another one of these cam sites where you pay to watch a girl shove a fist in her ass. Not that I've ever done that.
You can also
but
get that for free on a lot of other websites, but not that I've ever looked.
But there's something about interacting with the person as they're shoving a fist in their ass, like live. You know, they're reading your comments.
Hey, man.
I'm like, yeah.
You don't even have VR, so you don't even know what it's like to really interact.
I've never shoved a fist in my ass either, so I don't know what that's like either. But, you know, a boy can dream.
Well, if you get VR, you can kind of feel it. But anyway.
Nope. But yeah, so Cam Soda stepped up and said, "Hey, we'll give you $10,000 if you let one of our girls be in your corner for the fight."
And then Darren Till countered all of these rising bids by creating a GoFundMe page, which is currently on the page, and it says, "Get Darren Till to corner Mike Perry," and it says, "Let's get Darren into Mike Perry's corner for some raw advice and get them into a spa together once and forever. All money raised will go to Mike Perry, and if he doesn't use Darren in his corner, all money will be refunded. Darren is deadly serious about this and would take it as serious as possible. Team Raw Dog." And currently, he's raised $3.3 out of $25,000, and it's pounds, so it's more than that. So he's raised like probably 5,000 or 6,000 of his 32,000. That's definitely a lighter note than people dying. I personally hope that he gets funded, to be honest with you, because I am a huge fan of funding situations like this, where like go fund me to make a potato salad. Like, you remember those, like, stupid, like, people spent like $100,000 so the guy could make a perfect potato salad or some shit. You remember that, like, a few years ago? Like, yes. I'm all for those things because A, it's people's money. They can do whatever they want with it. If they want to spend $25,000 or like spend their money so that he can do this because of trolling or whatever, chaos. Let's do it.
Can we do super chats if we premiere this?
Yes. Yes, we can.
All right, guys. Well, if you've made it this far, why don't we do a Daniel and Gian talk donation
to match
to Darren Till's GoFundMe? Yeah, we'll match. We'll match whatever you guys super chat. So
he's gonna really like that $1.28 that super chat gives him. And us. That's us matching the 60 cents.
Maybe he tweets us and roasts us for like, donating $2.36.
Hey man, it'll be worth it.
It would be worth it.
Either way, it's funny. It's all good fun, especially when UFC is getting a bunch of shit for being X, Y, and Z, whatever. I feel like people really want to hate on UFC right now because they're just owning every other sport. So it's always nice to see things like this come out.
That's why I don't. It just shows how much I'm not like on Facebook because most of the people I follow on Twitter are MMA related, so they're not really hating on it,
which is fine. That's good.
They're just talking about fights and stuff. They think you get that one friend that talks about politics here and there, but for the most part, most people are just worried about who's going to win and lose this weekend.
That damn Colby Covington thing makes people all of a sudden UFC analysts. That's all.
Right.
Colby
I
Covington
feel like that died too.
It did die. I'm
died
just saying.
The second we decided to put talk about it on our podcast.
Yeah, we killed it. We killed it.
Just like our channel. Yeah, we see your comments, fuck faces.
But either way.
Yeah, that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Thanks for watching. You know the drill. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Ring the bell if you already are. And we will see you on the next one.